the whole thing with voter ID, identification, I think is really, I mean, people are going to walk in, they're going to vote 10 times maybe. Who knows? They're going to vote 10 times. So I am very concerned, and I hope the Republicans are going to be very watchful.
Yeah, they got to be vigilant.
I hope the authorities are going to be very watchful.
Donald Trump, of course, talking with our very own Bill Riley about the recent rulings. In fact, in several states, many of them, they've struck down voter ID laws. Trump argues that the court decisions will lead to voter fraud, adding to his narrative that these elections are rigged. And meanwhile, Hillary Clinton, who stands to gain from these rulings in battleground states like North Carolina, concurs with the courts, of course, that voter IDs are discriminatory and suppress minority votes. So who's right? Joining me now to discuss, Hans von Spakovsky, Eric Guster, and Gina Loudon. Hans, let me go to you first. I'm somewhat surprised at all of these decisions, one after another, and certainly in key states.
Well, you shouldn't be surprised by the North Carolina decision. It was the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, 2 Obama nominees and a Clinton nominee. Now, we know that the claims it's discriminatory are not true because we've had voter ID laws in effect now in several states for many years, like Georgia and Indiana, and they haven't in any way suppressed voters or kept people out of the polls. That's also true in North Carolina, which, by the way, not only do they give you a free ID if you don't have one, if you show up at the polling place and you say, look, I don't have an ID because I had a reasonable impediment that kept me from getting one, you can sign that form and you still get to vote. How in the world is that discriminatory?
Gina Loudon?
Yeah, well, it is only discriminatory, as Hans said, on the side of the Democrats who are wholesale against any sort of a voter ID. That is a very racist idea. They actually stated, as Hans says in the Wall Street Journal, that they need this for blacks because blacks are less sophisticated. I can't imagine such racist language resonating with black voters out there. Why would you want to vote Democrat if that's what your own party leaders think of you? And this was a sophisticated effort on the part of George Soros to steal the presidential election in 2008 when he started the Secretary of State's project that has resulted in 0 dissent of any Democrat Secretary of State in the country who wants voter integrity. You won't find them.
Eric, what are your thoughts, Eric? I mean, to a degree, you have to say, golly, you know, voters ID. We need ID for everything. When I forget my ID to come to this building, I cry. I need it all day long. I mean, to vote. Why shouldn't something be? There
are a lot of people who don't have ID, Charles. A lot of older people, a lot of poor people, they simply don't have ID. So that does suppress that vote. And the GOP is Trump is trying to set people up for his failure. He's saying, oh, everything is rigged. Oh, he's coming out trying to set all of his people up for his failure because in the Fox News poll, he's down 10 points,
yeah, but I'm talking
amazing.
About the voter ID things. I'm not buying that it's so hard to get ID. I went the only thing hard about it is waiting in line. I was at the motor vehicle points on Saturday. Let me tell you, you can get ID. Illegal aliens have ID. People, I think that's a cop-out.
It's not a cop-out, especially in some areas like rural Alabama, for once. Our governor shut down the ID stations for people to get ID. So they have to go to the major cities to get ID 2 hours away, which that was an example of what a GOP governor did. That's an example of what a GOP governor did in my state of Alabama in order to suppress.
I'm smiling, Eric, because if we can go to a Bama game this season, and I bet you we'll see a lot of people from rural Alabama who found their way to the stadium. Go ahead, Gina.
Charles, this is not true. They've tested this over and over again. In fact,
wait, it's not true about Alabama?
When minorities, first of all, they'll bring it to you. So that doesn't even make sense. They've offered in every state to bring whatever is needed, including the ballots, to these people. So that's just, it's a non-argument. But more importantly than that, that is true, but more importantly than that, in Texas and North Carolina, when this was tested, black votership just actually increased. So your arguments, they are nonsensical. They're not true. This is all about trying to steal an election, and Eric, you know that.
And let me bring in Hans on that because, you know what? I think this could be a difference maker. And the timing, of course, fortuitous, Hans, but do you think it could make a difference in November?
Well, it could because, look, unfortunately, there are a lot of states in this country where it's easy to commit fraud and it's easy to get away with it. And these cases unfortunately, which were intended to try to improve the integrity of the election process, are doing the exact opposite. Listen, by the way, in the Texas and North Carolina cases, the judges, the district court judge in North Carolina, the dissenting judges in Texas, they pointed out that the plaintiffs in those cases could not come up with a single witness in either case that was going to be unable to vote because of the voter ID laws.
All right, guys, let's leave it there. Thank you very much.